Hey allihopa, I'm Alexandra. Welcome to my channel and to this video, this birth story video. I'm excited to film this video. I actually at the point that I'm filming this, it's been about a month since Sirius was born, and at first I was kind of mad at myself for not being able to get the video done earlier, just because I was afraid of forgetting things or details, but I don't think I have, and in a way I think it's a good thing that I've had some like distance to think about everything. And I've obviously talked about the birth with lots of people, especially because it was very different from my other 3 births. So yeah, I think it's fine. So let's just get right into it, I guess. For the last few weeks of this pregnancy, I was very done. I was in more pain than I have been with the other kids. I have 3 kids, by the way. If you didn't know, I have a 10-year-old, a 6-year-old, and a 4-year-old. And they were all born before the due date. So my oldest was born 6 weeks early, and I was gonna say my middle child, he's obviously not my middle anymore now that I have 4, but yeah, Theo was born 3 weeks early, and Myranda was born, she wasn't considered a preemie, but she was born a week before her due date. So they've come later and later in the pregnancy, and I was kind of joking that maybe this one will stay in, like maybe I'll go over my due date. I didn't, but I guess I will start with, the mucus plug. Let's see, it started the first time like that I noticed that the mucus plug was kind of starting to come out was the Saturday before labor started, I guess you could say. So this was 2 weeks before my due date, almost exactly. I think I was due on a Sunday, so 2 weeks and a day before my due date. The mucus plug started coming out, and then it kind of came every little by little, I guess, for the next week or so. So I thought that hopefully I'm going into labor really soon. I hoped that the mucus plug starting to come out was like the first sign of actual labor. It wasn't. I didn't get any contractions that day or the day after or the day after. But then on the next Saturday, so I guess 8 days before my due date, I started having contractions, but they weren't very painful at all. They were like more than Braxton Hicks, obviously, and I started timing them in my app and everything, but I didn't really consider them to be like real contractions at all. And they were also very irregular. Sometimes 15 minutes would pass between them, and sometimes 3 hours would go by. And then in the evening they stopped completely, so I was like, okay, this is definitely false. And then the next day, on the Sunday, they came back, but again they were pretty much exactly the same as the day before, I think, like very irregular and not very painful. And then again they went away in the evening. And then I guess, I don't know how to classify everything, but when I consider like actual labor starting is that night. So Sunday night at 11-ish. I had just finished editing the vlog. I put my computer on the floor and went to bed. And right pretty much as I went to bed and wanted to sleep, you know, I had another contraction. Still not very painful, but I timed it. And then they started coming every like maybe 10 or 15 minutes or so. And I think I dozed off in between, and I woke up from when the contraction started. So they must have been pretty painful, even though at that time I still didn't think it was actual labor. So that was at 11. And so those went on for about an hour, because I think 1 minute before midnight, I had this popping sensation down there, you know, and I was like, what was that? It wasn't a sound, it was more like, yeah, like a sensation or a feeling, kind of. It's very difficult to explain. And my water hasn't broken with any of the other kids. They've had to like break them for me, I guess, at the hospital. But I did remember reading or hearing somewhere that it can kind of feel like that, like a popping. So that came back to me, and I was like, oh, maybe my water broke. This is something new. So that was kind of exciting also, because once your water has broken, you obviously can't be pregnant for a bunch of time after that. I don't know what kind of the regulations are, but I know that if labor doesn't start within a few days at least, they induce you. So I was like, yay, the baby's gonna come out in like a few days at most. And I went to the bathroom because I figured I don't want to get the bed wet and everything. So I sat down on the toilet, and sure enough, it was kind of trickling, so I was like, yes, this is definitely the water breaking. Fun. But with the next contraction after that, I realized that they had picked up quite a bit. It still wasn't like super duper painful, but it was definitely a big change from the contractions I had had before. So at this point I was like, wow, I think we're actually gonna have a baby. This probably isn't gonna like settle down and go away for the night. So after, I don't know how long, but yeah, actually I do know how long. This was at midnight, like I just said, and at like 15 minutes past midnight, I called my dad because he was supposed to come here and take care of the other kids while we were at the hospital. And so I called him and told him to jump into a cab because I was pretty sure we were going to go to the hospital. And the funny thing is, I learned this afterwards. Apparently he had taken sleeping pills because he got home from the US just a few days before. So he was dealing with jet lag and stuff. And I guess he kind of forgot that he maybe should not be on sleeping pills when he is on, like, might be on kid duty at my house. But it's a good thing he took a cab, so he got here and I mean, we didn't notice anything, so it's not like he was groggy or anything. But yeah, apparently he had kind of a hard time getting out of bed after that phone call. But yeah, I called him around 15 minutes past noon, past midnight, so it wasn't a very long time. And then at 20 minutes past, so just a couple of minutes after, I called the hospital to kind of talk to them, ask what they thought, and say that I kind of wanted to go to the hospital. And I had 2 contractions during that, like, maybe 4-minute conversation. So obviously the contractions were picking up and coming more closer together. And she was like, yeah, it sounds like it's time, so go ahead, come into the hospital. That was a relief because with at least one of my other kids, they didn't have any available rooms at the place where you give birth. Like the ward where you give birth. I can't find the word right now. So we had to kind of wait and just hope that they would have an empty room eventually, and they did. But sometimes when they don't, when a lot of women are giving birth at the same time, you know, they have to send you to different hospitals, sometimes in other cities. So I was very relieved just that she said, yeah, go ahead, come in. So that was nice. And after this, I went to wake up my husband, Michael, because I just figured if we are going to be up for a few days in labor, it's good that he can sleep as long as possible. So he had maybe gone to bed around like 10:30 or something. So at least he'd gotten an hour or 2 of sleep. So I went to wake him and told him I think we need to go to the hospital, and also told him to wake up our oldest child, Tyrion, because we had prepped him for this, obviously, but he kind of went upstairs to wake him and tell him that we are going to leave, but Granddad is on his way. He's going to be here soon. So he did that. And when, I think just after, if I remember correctly, just after Michael, after I woke him, I had a contraction that was considerably more painful than the ones I had had before. I had to sit, or I sat down hoping that would help. It didn't really with the pain. And I felt at the end of that contraction that I had to go to the bathroom. So I went and sat on the toilet and kind of figured, well, it's good that my body's emptying out, you know, before giving birth. And while he was upstairs with Tyrion, I had my next contraction and I had the urge to push and I couldn't stop it. I think a lot of women know what this feels like, who's given birth, obviously. At the hospital, sometimes they tell you to like, stop pushing now, you need to kind of pace yourself, and they're trying to make sure you don't tear and everything. And it's like, I can't stop pushing, my body's making me push, there is no way to hold that back. And this was definitely one of those times. And it, like I said, it was the first contraction that I even had the urge to push. And I did. And I don't know how to explain this part, because people have asked me and I don't know, but in my head, I needed to go to the bathroom, you know, to do number 2. But at the same time, I know what it feels like to push a baby out. And so at the same time, I knew when I was pushing him out that that's what I was doing. But still, I my brain just couldn't grasp that fact, because in my head, obviously, I was hours away from giving birth. And to me, I mean, like I said, the contractions had only been painful for like half an hour at this point. So I was just, I don't know. Anyway, I didn't grasp in the moment that there was gonna be a baby coming, so I didn't catch him. He fell into the toilet bowl. Yeah, he fell right into the water. And yeah, if I could go back, I would have caught him. But I didn't, and I can't really explain how that happened. Some people have been very like, how? But yeah, that's the only way I can explain it, I guess. And fortunately, he wasn't hurt or anything. I mean, at the hospital, they didn't even like raise an eyebrow kind of when I told them that he had been born into the toilet. They were just like, oh wow. But they didn't check him in any specific way for, I don't know what could have gone wrong, but they didn't seem very worried about it, I guess. Anyway, I looked down into the toilet like half a second after he's come out, and I'm like, there's a baby in the toilet. I didn't say that, but you know, I realized. So I picked him up right away. Of course, he had the cord wrapped around his neck, not like hard or anything, and only one time. So I unraveled that, and then I just pulled him super close to me. This, by the way, was at I think pretty much exactly midnight. So 10 minutes after I called the hospital, and maybe like 5 minutes after I woke Michael up. And I just put him super close to me for him to get my body heat, because, and I need to give a shout out now, Mama Dr. Jones on YouTube. She's awesome. Check her channel out. I've watched a lot of her reacting to the show I Didn't Know I Was Pregnant, and a lot of those women obviously give birth not in hospitals because they don't know that they're pregnant, and it just has stuck in my brain that the most important thing when a baby is born is to keep them warm, and the best way to do that is to, if you don't have like lots of towels just close to you, is to hold them close so they can get your body heat, you know. So that was pretty much the main thought that was running through my head over and over, and I think I was definitely in shock, and that's like the main thought that I can remember at least. So I pulled him close, and I don't like scream when I give birth the way they kind of do in movies sometimes. I am mostly quiet when I'm in labor, and when I'm in pain, I just kind of just go inside myself in a way. But for the actual pushing, I definitely make noises. I like whine and I think grunt and stuff. And I know Tyrion heard that because he told me afterwards. So Michael probably did too. But it was when the first baby cry came that I think Michael was like, oh crap. So he obviously came downstairs, came into the bathroom. Fortunately, I hadn't locked the door. Because I was just, I don't know, I usually always lock the door, no matter, pretty much even if no one else is at home. I always lock the bathroom door, but I hadn't this time. I think maybe I realized somewhere that this might happen, even though I don't think so. But I guess I just wanted it to be unlocked in case I wanted to help somehow, or for some reason. And obviously I did. So he opened the door, looked in, saw me and a newborn baby, and I just told him, you need to call like it's not 911 in Sweden, but you know, the equivalent. You need to call the emergency number, you know. So he was like, okay, and he left because he needed to grab a phone, and he called them. And for the next about 30 minutes, we were just at home waiting for the ambulances. Apparently in our municipality, all the ambulances were busy, I guess. So they sent for 2 ambulances from 2 other districts, and it took them some time to get here. Also, another, I guess, reason for that, I'm guessing, is that this night was like the stormiest, worst rainy night pretty much all summer. There was so much lightning and thunder, and that kept on going throughout the night. So yeah, anyway, so that could have contributed to them taking their time, I guess you could say. And in hindsight, I'm just very grateful that Sirius was healthy and everything was fine with him, because if something would have gone really badly, obviously it would have taken some time for medical help to arrive. So I'm very, very grateful for that. But yeah, I sat on the toilet for a bit. Obviously the cord was like, I mean, the placenta was still in me, so there was this cord and this newborn baby, and I had already gotten dressed because I figured we needed to go to the hospital, of course. So I had my leggings on, but at my knees, of course, because I was in the bathroom. I thought that I needed to go to the bathroom. So I was just sitting there. It was just crazy. And Michael kept coming in every now and then, I think prompted by the person he was talking to, because I guess she asked him, like, what color is the baby, and can you ask mom if she's okay, how is she feeling and stuff. And then eventually I was like, Michael, hey, can I ask you something? Because he was talking on the phone. I was like, can you put some towels on the bed? So he put some towels down right here, and I somehow managed to get myself in here with the baby, and I laid down, and we, like, of course put blankets on him and stuff, or maybe a towel, I don't remember. And at this point, the other kids had woken up too. I don't know if they woke up from all the commotion or if Tyrion woke them up, but the two younger kids came downstairs and looked in the door and were like, what's happening, you know? And so I didn't want them to get scared or anything. So I was like, oh, come up on the bed. You can look at your brother, or you can see your brother and stuff. And it was such a surreal thing. I have never, ever contemplated a home birth, and this was just not something I had ever imagined, of course. Tyrion didn't come downstairs. I didn't know this at the time, but afterwards he has told us that he was really freaked out and really scared, because he of course heard my noises, and then he heard the baby crying, and he's old enough to know that this is not normal, this is not the way it was supposed to go, and he was really scared. So I feel so bad for him, but I understand. I mean, it would have freaked anyone out to be in that situation, and he had just woken up and everything. But yeah, I think he came downstairs later. He didn't really come in here and like sit by me or anything, but he, I think, saw the baby. But anyway, I am jumping the gun. So yeah, I was on the bed holding baby. He was crying every now and then. Myranda did this every time that he cried. I think she just thought it was loud, but I told her it's good that he's crying. We want him to cry. That means he's doing well. So yeah, he was crying. The kids were looking at him. I was trying to understand what was happening. And then eventually the ambulances came, and they came inside here. And I want to show you, wait a minute. This little bunny, the ambulance people actually gave to us once they left, like, from the hospital. They obviously got us to the hospital, but afterwards they gave us this little bunny. I'm covering it because it has like personal information on it. But anyway, they wrote all their names on the back of the shirt of the bunny. And that's so special. There were 4 of them, 2 from each ambulance, and they came in and obviously like checked me out and the baby. And I don't think they did much with him. They just, of course, checked that he was doing okay. But with me, they put one of those, like, I don't know what it's called, but like a tube into your blood system so that they can give you meds and stuff with short notice. They tried at first, I think, in my arm, and then they eventually got it in here because they couldn't find the vein or whatever. And they did give me fluids and stuff. I think I might have started getting pale. I was definitely very, very like dizzy and not disoriented, but everything was spinning. Even when I was just lying down completely still, I felt like everything was spinning. And I'm sure the shock was like contributing to that. So even when they took the stretcher, I think is the word, where you lie down, they took it in here. And even though I just had to walk from the bed to like here, kind of where I'm sitting now, 2 people had to kind of help me to make sure I didn't fall. Obviously, I was also holding the baby, so it's a good thing they were making sure everything was fine. But yeah, I was very dizzy, kind of in shock, and at this point I had already started getting a bit stressed about the placenta. I know that the placenta, of course, needs to come out, I don't know how quickly, but within a few hours. I think it's just a risk of infection and stuff if it doesn't. So I was already like, why isn't the placenta out? And with my other kids, I haven't really even thought about it. I've been so focused on the baby that like the placenta came out and it wasn't a big deal. But at this point, some time had gone by, and I was just like, why isn't it just coming out? So anyway, I said goodbye to everyone. And my dad had arrived at this point too, so that feels good too. It wouldn't have felt good to leave the kids at home awake at night, freaked out, without him being here. But I think my dad was here for quite a bit before we left. I think the ambulance people were here for probably an hour or an hour and a half before we actually left for the hospital. So I said goodbye. We got into the ambulance, and I was in a lot of pain at this point. I had a pain that came and went, so I figured that it was like after contractions to get the placenta out, but I only felt them in like the small of my back. That's where the pain was concentrated, and it was really bad. And I didn't push. There was no like urge to push the placenta out. I was just in pain. So in the ambulance, I actually asked them, is there any painkillers you can give me? Because this is excruciating. And they gave me morphine, and they gave me more morphine, and they gave me as much as they were allowed, you know. But it didn't really help, I felt like. And I was freaking out more and more because of the placenta and the pain. So there were two women in the back of the ambulance with me, talking to me, and they were really trying their best to keep me calm and happy, I guess. They talked about their kids and their deliveries, and they talked about my kids. One of them, I almost cry every time I talk about this. She hadn't really been in here with me and the baby when they arrived. She went and sat with my kids instead, while the other ambulance personnel were helping me. And she said, "Oh, your oldest, what's his name and how old is he and everything? Oh, he's so amazing. He was so nice." The first thing he said was to make sure that she knew that I have or had gestational diabetes. He had like taken care of his siblings, and she was just like in awe of him, and that is so special. And I'm so grateful for her, or to her, for saying that, because that was also one thing that I just latched onto kind of, that wasn't scary or negative, you know, in the moment. I'm trying to think if there's anything else about the ambulance ride. Well, the rain was pouring and there was lightning and thunder. I wasn't paying attention to that. I didn't know, but I could hear, or I didn't like notice it, but I could hear the women in the ambulance with me. They were talking to the male ambulance guy who was driving, and telling him to like not rush, I guess, and be careful and everything, because the rain was really pouring down. And Michael said so too. He came afterwards in our car, and he said that you could barely see the road because of all the rain, and it was just a scary time. So I am quite happy that we never made it to the car before the baby was born, because I would not have wanted to sit like at the edge of a road in pouring rain and lightning and thunder and having given birth in the car. This was definitely better. So yeah, we got to the hospital. They covered me and the baby with blankets when they were gonna wheel us out. Even though there were only a few meters between the ambulance and the hospital doors, the rain was coming down so quickly that they were like, "We're just gonna cover you. You're not gonna see anything for a couple of seconds. We'll pull it off once we're inside." So we went inside. I remember when they wheeled me through the corridor to one of the delivery rooms, I saw a clock at like in the ceiling, and it was 2:20. So this is like 2 hours ish after the baby was born, and I was like, "Wow, is it 2:20 already?" I remember saying that to them, because time is so weird when something so unique, I guess, or shocking is happening, even like in a normal birth too, not just because of the circumstances here, but in all my births. The concept of time, especially afterwards, has been so weird, and that was definitely the case this time too. So about 2 hours had passed, and we got to the delivery room. Michael wasn't there yet, because he stayed behind and kind of like cleaned the toilet and stuff so the kids wouldn't freak out and be really scared. I never looked down into the toilet after picking the baby up, but I can imagine that it was like not fun. So he came a bit later, and he was actually worried the entire ride to the hospital that I was upset with him for not coming quicker, and I didn't even notice. I had no idea who was in the room, because at this point, like I said, the placenta thing was freaking me out, and I think that the midwife and the nurse that were in the delivery room with me, they were starting to also feel like the placenta needs to come out, so they were trying to starting to rush it. I got oxytocin, I think, to kind of calm me, or that was at least the hope, that it would calm me a bit so I wouldn't freak out. I got laughing gas, and yeah, obviously they noticed that I was not in a good mental space. And then they started trying to kind of pry my legs open, like push them up. Push my feet up and then pry my legs open to help get the placenta out. And this was the worst part for me. And I remember thinking, and I've thought so many times after this, that with all the other kids, getting the baby out is the worst part. Once you've done that, the worst part is over. The rest you don't really even pay attention to. And I was so freaked out that, even though, or not freaked out at that part, but I was like kind of mad that I have the baby here. The baby is with me, and the worst part should be over now. But it wasn't for me. I started panicking. I had like panic attacks. I feel like I had just a long panic attack, but I don't know. And I was hyperventilating into the laughing gas thing, and I told them too. I told them, I can't do this. Just put me under. Just like sedate me. And they said that too a couple of times. Like, we need to get it out. Otherwise, we're going to have to operate you and to get it out. And I was like, just do it. I can't handle this. I'm too scared. I'm too scared. I said that over and over. And they just kept trying to pry my legs open. And I kept closing them because I was so scared. And this is the worst part of this delivery for sure. At this point that I'm talking about now, Michael had arrived, and he was holding the baby, so he couldn't really like he was supporting me, of course, but he couldn't hold my hand and stuff. So I was actually holding one of the ambulance women's hand, and I really appreciated her for that. She said, you can just hold on as tight as you need to. And then eventually I think they gave the baby to someone else, so that Michael could support me, but still that wasn't working. They told me over and over, the placenta isn't coming out because you are like seizing up, or you're so tense. And I was like, well, I can't just shut that off. What do you want me to do? And eventually they called another nurse into the room, or a midwife, whatever. And so they were two people on one side of me, prying one leg down or open or whatever. And then the other nurse told Michael to come over to her side and help her do the same with the other leg. And I will admit that at the moment, and now too, I guess, that felt like, I can't really find the words in English, but it definitely felt like they were going too far. Like, I had no autonomy when it came to my body. Even though I know now, and I knew at that time too, I was thinking that I know they're doing this for me, for my sake, for my for my safety and health and everything. It still just felt like, this is too much. You can't do this to a person. This isn't okay. And also roping my husband into doing this to me. It was, I don't know, it shattered something in me a bit. And that was the part after birth that I had to kind of come to terms with and deal with mentally to kind of get over. The rest wasn't as bad at all for me to process, I guess. But yeah, eventually I think they were pushing so hard in one direction and I was pushing so hard in another direction that I think that helped pushing the placenta out, and it came out. And I cried so much right after because I was so relieved. And with my other kids, I've cried from relief after pushing the baby out. This time I cried from relief after the placenta came out, because I suddenly I could kind of let go of that fear, of course, and the panic. And the main midwife, she did come to me kind of right away and said, I'm sorry we had to do that, and I understand, like I said, why they did it, but I'm not sure that I can feel like it was an okay thing to do. But the placenta came out, and she checked me a little bit later, and I had 2 tiny tears, but she said we don't have to put stitches if you don't want to, and I definitely didn't. I've had both, and not having stitches after giving birth, at least to me, has been much better and less painful, so I didn't need any stitches, which was a good thing. Then I had the sandwich and what's it called? Something you drink. Well, you get lots of lemonade kind of to drink so that you can go pee, because you also have to do that before you get to leave the delivery room. So I did all of that stuff. I was still very dizzy, and I kept telling them that I was. I don't know if it was like the aftermath of the adrenaline and the shock and everything, or if maybe the morphine contributed. I don't know. But I didn't lose like lots of blood. At least no one has ever, like, through this process told me that I lost a lot of blood, so I didn't think so. But I was very dizzy, and fortunately you always get to go to the like room where you stay with the baby in a wheelchair, so I was wheeled there, and yeah, that's pretty much the birth story. I'm gonna look at my notes, or like the notes from the hospital, to see if there is anything important that I missed. Yeah, they gave me oxytocin twice, apparently. Of course, these notes, they don't have very much in them, because the entire like actual delivery happened at home. So it's very different from the other kids, where like every step of contractions and everything is written down. Here they just kind of had to rely on what I was telling them, and I pieced everything together afterwards with like going through my phone and looking at the contractions, and looking at what times I made different calls and everything. So it's been kind of interesting afterwards to kind of put together how everything went, like time-wise. And I think I have everything right for this video. Yeah, it says total bleeding here, and it was about half a kilo, or half a liter, but how would they know? I mean, I probably lost a lot of blood just from giving birth in the toilet and stuff, but yeah, it says half a liter right here. Oh, they also put a what's it called, catheter, because they thought that maybe if I had a lot of urine in my bladder, that was contributing to the placenta not coming out, but I didn't have a lot. But yeah, I had the catheter, so yeah, I don't think there's much more that's important or interesting. But yeah, I often say that I mix up the details of my different births now that I've had a few, and they're quite similar. But I don't think I'm gonna mix this one up with the others anytime soon. This was definitely unique for me, and it's funny afterwards too, or funny, but it's like kind of sensational to tell people what happened afterwards. But obviously we're just grateful that everything went well, and we're not planning on having any more kids. But if we did, I've said that, like, if I have another baby, I'm gonna go to the hospital like the second I have the first contraction, even if it doesn't even give me any pain, kind of, because I don't want to go through this again, even though everything went well, and it's kind of a funny story, you know. Anyway, I've been talking for way too long. My camera even stopped in the middle of it because I had filmed for so long. So I am gonna stop rambling now. If you have any questions, you can put them in the comments. Coming up here, I will also put a 1 month update video on me and on baby. I don't exactly know when I'm gonna post the different videos, but yeah, that's coming too, soon-ish at least. And thank you for listening.